Doesn't matter whether you're in the Chiefs war room, sitting around the couch with your spouse, or you're at the bar trying to make somebody's information sync with yours. You got to make your case, and we're doing that today with Matt Derrick here on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome in, Chiefs Kingdom. Thanks for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Make another show your next listen because they are all over the place, and there's a ton of them. We're going to have some fun today. It's Stop the Table season in the NFL as we get ready for the NFL draft, and we're going to have a play here on making a case to Brett Veach. Matt and I are going to go back and forth. Matt Derrick at ChiefsDigest.com. You can get all of his work over there, as well as Chiefs Digest here on the YouTube platform, as well as 41 is the Mike, the podcast. You got to check all that out because he is my sanity today. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting. Matrix 1 is out right now. The update, as soon as the Pro Days are up, will come out immediately. If you've already purchased it, you know how you're going to get the link and all that. If not, go to rogueapc.com and get it. The draft guide is right on the heels of that as we are finishing up our grades. Me and the team are working away, so don't miss out on it and be ready for this NFL draft. We have a ton for you. I'm excited about this one. Everybody, check out our sponsors. They do a great job because we couldn't get along without them. To tell you the truth, we're brought to you today by Game Time. They're doing a great job. You can download that Game Time app, use the code LOCKEDONNFL to create your account, and then you get $20 off your first purchase. It's super simple and straightforward, and it does the job. If there's breaking news, you can find us at 816-357-8781. Chris will get the text line going, and that always helps. Now, today, we have to make a final argument coming up later in the show, and Matt will probably win this one because he's, we're just going to say more couth at this, but we'll get to that. We're going to have to find some details. We're going to have to discover some things. That's coming up in a little bit, but we are going to start out by simply defining the facts of this case. And I'm going to lay it up to you. I'm not going to go first, but Matt, if you are in the room this week as scouts, execs, actually the doctors as well, everybody's talking Brett Veach, trying to come up with this plan. What are the facts that are most pertinent to your case for this draft right now?
Ooh, it's a really good question because I could make multiple different arguments, but I would say I would probably be the voice in the room advocating for largely two things. But here's the facts around those two things. Is that one, that Chiefs and Brett Veach have made some moves in the last couple of years, which means that their drafts already in 2026 are missing some draft picks. And now I can get it. They may be getting some back in supplemental picks and everything, compensatory picks. I think they're absolutely banking on that from this offseason and with free agency, getting maybe some picks back next year too. But this team needs to build through the draft. This team also needs a reliable left tackle foundational piece. And how do you do that? Well, to me, if you look at, like the examples of the Philadelphia Eagles, you've got to acquire draft picks. You've got to get more picks for the future, because if you want to move, because we already know what the facts are in this case. If you want a foundational left tackle, you're only going to get them in the first 20 picks of the first round. Otherwise, it's a complete and total crapshoot. You're rolling the dice, and you're probably not going to have a foundational piece anyway. You might have a competent left tackle, but it doesn't mean you have a cornerstone of your franchise to protect your quarterback for the next decade. You got to be in the top 20. So how do you do that? You don't do it in 1 year. You can't. I mean, I know the Chiefs did it going from 27 to 10 to get Mahomes, but different circumstances also have to give a lot of picks to do it. Mm-hmm. So my point is that you need more picks, and you need to be able to make the runway so that in 26 or 27, you got the capital to go from the 30s into the teens to get the left tackle you want, or even higher if you were. I mean, if there's a player that you absolutely want and you just don't want to be picking the third or the fourth best option, there's a particular player that you're going to want in 26 or 27, you need to make the moves now. So trading back, getting more capital for 26, or even getting more picks in 25, you need to do that, because one thing Brett Veach knows, he has to build to the draft.
That makes a lot of sense. And given that there will be opportunity to move around, trading back fixes the future. It doesn't fix the present. And for me, The foundational fact of this case is that you don't have an answer at that left tackle spot. You have an option. You don't have an answer. And so as much as trading back, acquiring picks, that makes sense. So does if the opportunity arises to go get one of those top 20 type picks, to get someone that you can project actually will hit, that you're not looking at developmental path. You're not looking at if we can train him to do this. If you're not looking at if he matures, you take all the ifs out and there's someone worth going to get. I'm not going to hold the brakes on that. And I'm going to tell him that this is an option as well. But it takes more than one answer because there are more than one need. That's just one position here. This class has very, very specific pluses and minuses. The tackle class is deep. It's also very short-armed overall, and it is very thin at the top. The defensive tackle class is deeper and I think better at the top. I have more first-round grades at the defensive tackle spot than the offensive tackle spot. But that doesn't mean that the scarcity has to drive the whole equation. So what becomes for me the secondary argument in this case is one way or the other, those are the two things that you're going to have to get in the top 100 and get it sorted out. It doesn't have to be the first pick. If there's a skill player or whatever that you need, that's the way that I'm approaching this. And that's what I would be counseling this team to do if they were going forward. A, do you think I'm crazy? And B, is there one thing that you would prefer if it wasn't trading back?
I mean, I don't think that you're crazy. And I think, in reality, I think we're in lockstep agreement on the draft to a point, which is I would make a caveat that I think that the evidence suggests the details in this draft in particular is that it's a deep tackle class. But I would say that this tackle class is loaded with a lot of guards and right tackles because, as you mentioned, nobody has any length. I mean, I think that the most exciting guys that, have the length, and let's face it, I mean, they've been measured 3 different times, and for the most part, these guys have all 3 different lengths, depending on whether it was the Shrine Bowl and the Senior Bowl, and then the Combine, and then their pro days, which, I mean, it sounds like all the left tackles did some Bobby Brady stretching exercises to lengthen out those arms, or at least did some yoga. That's the concern for me, is that there might be 3 legitimate left tackles in this draft. And even then, there may be some question marks, especially when I compared to last year. And the question is, to me, are the next 2 classes going to be deeper? And is this about, hey, you've signed Jalen Moore. Is this just about getting by in 25 again and then going after it in 26? Or is there somebody in this year's draft class, or do you think you can acquire from another club still that can address the position long term?
We're going to make that argument coming up later in the show, and we are going to get to discovering the details right after this. Imagine watching your favorite team live, feeling the energy of the crowd and witnessing unforgettable moments. There's nothing like experiencing the big game in person. So getting tickets can sometimes be stressful. This is where Game Time comes in, making it easier for you to get the last-minute seats, any seats that you want at unbeatable prices. What you got to do is the curation process is exactly what has to happen. It makes it easier to find the better value tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, whatever you're looking for. They make it easy as well. You have to go in and set that up, find what you're looking for, use the Game Time app. It's all the amazing deals in one place from some huge matchups that are coming up here in the very near future. And they give you the lowest price guarantee, giving you 110% of a credit of the difference if you find it cheaper somewhere else. All you have to do is take the easy route, download the Game Time app. It all happens there. Create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL, and you're going to get $20 off of your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONNFL, and you'll get $20 off that first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. It's last-minute tickets, it's lowest prices, and it is guaranteed. We are back. You guys need to get more at ChiefsDigest.com and Chiefs Digest here on the YouTube platform. Check out me on RGR Football and NFL33.com. I think I forgot to mention that earlier. If you want to see a rant, go get subscribed because I just put up my piece on Aaron Rodgers, and the devil is in the details, as it is for this draft. Discovering the details is what the Chiefs have to do. It doesn't matter whether it's PIs, whether it's physicians. You have to uncover every little detail of every player that you put on this board. And the Chiefs are notorious for having a pretty small board. I don't expect there'll be 150 players in this class on their board. So you have to drill down. The question marks are out there. We mentioned the length of the offensive tackle class. The other thing that unfortunately I don't think we're going to know until draft night, Matt, is the mental makeup of the defensive front, something that is a high need, and one that I would argue is more plentiful and more likely should they have to stick at 31 in particular. But even at 63, 66, if they stay in that range, the defense is where the value is here. So if you are trying to change the evolution of what this team can be in the future, what are the details, mental or otherwise, that you're looking for in defensive front players that you're trying to interview out and find the answers for?
Yeah, I think that what you're looking for obviously are good scheme fits to me. I mean, it's obvious to look for some production. It's obvious to look for the metrics. It's obvious to look for the details on tape. The Chiefs are obviously big on that. I mean, there's a particular type that the Chiefs have. You could go after any of the three. I mean, you could go by just what you see, the eye test. You can go by the metrics. You can go by the size. I mean, you can go different directions, but the reality of it is that Chiefs have a certain type. They like guys who are long, lean, and have a lot of athleticism and a lot of versatility. And that's where to me in particular, I feel like, and I haven't I haven't got as deep into the draft as you have, Ryan, because I know how many players you've watched film on and gone into. So I haven't gone into the depth that you have for sure. But I mean, there's a lot of athleticism in the middle of this group, particularly at edge and tackle. I mean, I think there's a lot of guys in there that, can be that kind of versatile pieces. I mean, there's even players that I feel like that, have shown versatility in college, that they can play inside, they can play outside. I mean, not universally. I mean, you're not going to find another Chris Jones necessarily in this draft. But are you going to find, interior pass rushers that maybe can kick outside on, third down, kind of like Chris does a little bit? Yeah, I mean, I think that there are. There's, like I said, a lot of athleticism and good size in the third, fourth, and fifth rounds. I think there might be players who end up being just as good out of the third, fourth, and fifth rounds as there are with some of the consensus first-round picks this year.
It depends on placement, and I'm seeing a lot of the same thing. As you said, it's about scheme fit and what you're asked to do. We've seen some people in years past get placed into a scheme that doesn't fit them, and asking players to adapt is part of the process. But there's a line, and going past that reduces their ability to function within your scheme. The details for me come down to A, part of that scheme fit, but B, what the leverage is. What can they do next? And I agree with you. Multi-positional players along this front are the flavor of the day and honestly the decade for Steve Spagnuolo. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. So I'm looking for guys that can play both, that can have the power on the outside. We know they're not going to utilize a speed rusher. Andy Reid just had comments about Josh Uche and trying to get him into this defense. And the speed rusher is not part of this equation as much as I prefer that it would be. That is a change of pace. That is a change-up pitch. It's all heat and all power for this particular group and the way that they play. So that's detail number one that I have to have. But the second thing for me is the curveball. And I'm making this a baseball legal case, evidently. So what we're going to do, and throwing out the next argument, is if somebody comes in and it's not a defensive front player, it's not an offensive tackle, they're all off the board, all the first grade grades are gone, all the second grades are gone. What are you looking for? What's the next domino to fall for you to support this case of getting back to the Super Bowl?
Well, to me, the number one case for getting back to the Super Bowl is flat out and clear out, especially when the first round, it's best player available. And that's something that I've had this conversation now a couple of times this week because, increasingly you look at mock drafts, and we have to take all of ours, even our own, with a grain of salt because things don't always work out the way that we envision. But increasingly, there's a scenario where a guy like Luther Burden, a wide receiver, might be available late in the first round. It could be available at 31. I mean, I've been looking at like NFL mock draft database, and they've got him in the 30s right now. That's a first round talent of athleticism for sure. If all of the players that you have offensive line, defensive tackle, defensive end that you have first round grades on are gone, I'm absolutely taking a first-round talent wide receiver. I don't care as long as it's probably a premium position, I mean, it gets different if the best player on my guard is on the board right now is a guard or a running back. Then we're going to probably have a discussion about what we're going to do. But getting back to the Super Bowl, you can't give Patrick Mahomes enough weapons. You saw that last year. Injuries happen. Things happen. You want to protect Patrick Mahomes and you want to give him targets. Those are the two things that you always want to do. If you don't have a first-round talent of an offensive lineman, but you've got a first-round talent wide receiver or a tight end, anything of that nature, you take them. You absolutely take them.
You went right where I was going, and I'm going to make that argument. You're going to be able to rebut it, but we're going to do that. Final arguments, closing for what we want to do in this draft coming up next. On cross-examine, Matt has really beaten me to the punch on this one, folks. He does that a lot over at ChiefsDigest.com as well as Chiefs Digest here on YouTube. So make sure you check that out. I'm just going to set you up to finish your thought because that's exactly where I was going to go next. It's not just the wide receiver. Burden does have first-round talent on film. Certainly has the athleticism. There's some questions for me on off the field, on the dedication part. I'm not sure that I'd be ready to grab him at 31, but it's easily an argument to have, right? The more intriguing case to me is if there's a tight end that you have a high second or a low first on, can this team afford in this season, knowing that the trenches are what they need the most, can they afford to go to the tight end spot?
I mean, once I always go back to, and I do lean on it, it's cliche, but you have to believe in it. You have to trust it. You have to trust your board. You absolutely. Brett Veach has said before, you let your board talk to you. And hey, Brett Veach will want to sugarcoat it as much as he can. And I understand why GMs will always have to do this. They're always going to defend their picks. But I think if we gave Brett Veach some truth serum, he would tell you that Breland Speaks was not the best player on his board when they took him. Might tell you there's been some other players that they've taken in a couple of places that maybe wasn't the best player on their board, but they took them because they kind of had to. They were in a position where they needed a specific player at a specific spot. And that's why Brett Veach now does his absolute best. And this is a great year of evidence of that. He's got a decent 2-deep roster right now across the board going into the draft where he doesn't have a glaring obvious need. I mean, you can say that there's places to upgrade for sure, but you're not pointing at this roster and saying, whoa, if this team does not come out with player A or a certain type of player, either in the first round, third round, fourth round, whatever it may be, you're just not saying that. You're not saying that they're in that spot. So you can take whatever player is the best available player at that position. The problem is that, of course, we're all going to have varying degrees of, what's the best player available. I mean, if you look at the board, there's going to be probably a great example. I mean, maybe it's just your guy. I don't know, Ryan.
We're going to find out.
Like Harold Fannin from Bowling Green. I think that I've seen people who probably think he could go anywhere from 30 to 150. I mean, you get players that there's such the divergence on. I mean, there's some that have, there's I know like Tyler Warren from Penn State and Colston Loveland from Michigan are two big names. And then after that, it kind of, there's a board, a drawing line at tight end. I mean, if you really love the third best tight end in this draft, you want to take him at 31? I mean, I would say, once again, if I'm in the room with Brett Veach, I'm probably saying, tell you what, you got great player, let's pick him. But tell you what, can we get him at 43? Because I want more picks. I want a pick in 25, and I want a pick in 26 in exchange for moving back, and we'll still get our guy. But I want to move around. I want to get some collateral here, because right now maybe we're picking a spot where we can maybe get the same guy early in the second, but we don't need to be picking him in the first.
I think that's a legitimate argument. And my concern is what we heard about last year is trying to move up. Didn't work out. You end up in a spot where you're not moving back either. Very difficult at that point if you've tried and missed, basically. So my worst case scenario is they stick and they pick at 31. So I'm making the argument, much like you are, that just get out of that pick. Doesn't matter to me. If you have a grade, I don't think I'm going to have at most 21st round grades in this class. If those guys are all gone, get out of that pick as soon as you can. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I agree with you. I would move back as well, because that additional pick in the top 100, that's what it's all about in this class. like many, the girth, the volume of player that you could choose in rounds 2 and 3, just on day 2 and move around is too big to pass up. I'm looking at worst case scenarios.
And I think you bring up a great question, because what Brett Veach particularly does at 63 and 66, you've got 2 picks that are close together. And one thing we know for sure is that Brett Veach pretty much hates picking late in the second round. He doesn't want to wait. It does not. I mean, the history is always that Brett Veach wants to move up in the second round. And it really doesn't matter whether his pick is 56 or 63. He wants to be higher than he is.
Yeah.
So I'm betting more likely than not, the Chiefs are probably not picking at 63. Brett Veach is going to want to move up. It's just what's it going to cost him? What's it going to have to get there? Because the Chiefs don't have the currency that they've had in the past. They have those 5th and 6th round pick. They don't have the 5th and the 6th round pick. They got 3 7s, including the last pick in the draft.
Right.
Is that enough to move up in the second round? Probably not. I mean, it's going to take something else. So I don't know that the currency is there to move up from 63. Might be if you move back from 31 and you pick up a couple of picks, then maybe you do have the currency. So now maybe you're picking at 36 and 59 instead of 31 and 63. And maybe you've picked up some extra draft capital on top of it. I mean, that would be the dream scenario to me. But, in particular, you talk about being at 31 and that being the worst case scenario. I mean, that's how it's happened to the Chiefs in the past, that they've had one of the last 2 picks in the first round, and there's no one that anybody wants to move up for. You need that player that has dropped and is available. And I think, the craziest scenario to me, Ryan, and this might be, I don't know, worst case or best case, depending on how you look at it, is if the Chiefs are at 31, there's nobody on the board that they want, and Josh Simmons is out there at 31. Do you take him with the medical questions? Do you trade out and let somebody else take him and get the draft capital? And here's where I think even you and I would disagree, because I wouldn't take him, but that's me.
Okay. Yeah. and that's fair. I've heard what the workouts look like, and I'm putting a little bit of faith there. And I even ran down this specific scenario of Josh Simmons, where the guy that falls, that you have a first round grade. He is, I'm giving it away, folks, but the rankings will be out on NFL 33 next week. He is my top rated tackle on film. The injury is separate from that because it's a whole other factor. But on film, playing the game, he is the best guy in this draft. Hands down, to me, it is not particularly that close because there are some limitations on some of the other guys in that group. But that's the question. Do you put your faith in a wide receiver that maybe you question dedication? Do you put your faith in a defensive tackle that requires some motivation? Or do you take the risk on a medical that you hope you have enough information on? But if that is solid, you can easily see him becoming left tackle of the future, more so than you've seen of anything else that you've tried to put there in the last 4 seasons. For you, that would be a no, is what you're saying.
Based on the information that I have, to me, I wouldn't. But I haven't seen his medicals. I haven't seen him work out. And that's one thing. I mean, I think you'll be able to tell a little bit by the draft who's interested in Josh Simmons and who isn't. Because if you don't have him in for one of your top 30 visits, you're not taking him. Or if you do take him, what in the world are you thinking? Because you absolutely need this guy to come in and get your medical staff in front of him. I know they got to see him at the combine, and there's a drive-by and everything like this. And I'm sure that he had the longest drive-by of anybody at the combine, because I'm sure there was 32 teams that wanted their medical directors to take a hard, long look at him. But if you could bypass the opportunity to get a full day of working with him and seeing how the knee is and seeing all of his medicals and getting, your medical staff hands-on with him, and if you bypass that and still take him, that is just like buying a lottery ticket, and not just one, but maybe, you're buying like 12 million in lottery tickets.
Yeah.
It'd be great if you win, but you might be losing $12 million.
I got to tell you, though, this team has been so up and down with who it brings in and when. I wouldn't put it past them.
And here's the other part of it, too, is that I think it's tough. First of all, coming back from patella tendon rupture is probably one of the most difficult injuries to come back from for a football player, and especially an offensive lineman. I mean, there's not many others. I mean, I know you'll probably say there's some dark corner post interior lateral injuries and everything, even worse than the Rashee Rices that you could have one of those with, ACL involvement and everything. And you probably say that, but patella tendon is one of the worst.
Yes.
And then you're talking about coming into what might be one of the most high profile positions in the league, left tackle for the Chiefs. I mean, that's like trying to climb two mountains at once. And I think that's a tough spot to put an injured player in.
I think that's absolutely legit, and yet I would still probably move forward anyway. I can't really make the argument. As you said, we'll get more information as we get closer, and I'm sure we will see a little bit as well, as at least from what I'm hearing. Let's hope that that's the way that it works out. There are slighter chances you can take. That's certainly one of the biggest risks in this first round. I think it's funny that most of the mock drafts have him going in the teens still, and I don't think that's even on the table for most of those teams at this point. It takes vision. And the last thing that I will ask you, and I will make the argument for this as well, and it does involve the trade out of the first round. There's no one, Simmons included, that I think trumps this particular player for being the guy that the Chiefs have to keep an eye on. And honestly, behind the scenes would be pumping him up in order to try to make a move out. I think the whole trade out of 31, if you're going to move down, hinges on one player, and his name is Jackson Dart. At this point, there's only one reason to come up to 31 for most of the teams at the top of the next draft. Do you disagree? And what do you think are the chances of him being that pivotal player?
I mean, that's typically conventional wisdom, is that if you want to be able to trade out of the end of the draft in the first round, you need a quarterback to be available. So he would probably be the best, most logical answer. I'm going to throw another kind of wicket in there too, which is that it also helps if you've got some teams that you have some relationships with, and camaraderie helps too, but you trade history, all of those things. It helps if you've got some of those early in the second round too. And between having former Chiefs executives in Tennessee and Chicago that's got 2 picks in the top 10 of the second round, you've got the Giants that the Chiefs have dealt with in the past. You're not going to make a trade with the Raiders, but you trade with the Jets. I mean, you've got a lot of opportunities in the first half of the first 10 picks of the second round that I think there's a lot of teams that Brett Veach could, and absolutely is. That Brett Veach not only calls the teams in the first round that are ahead of the Chiefs and ask ahead of time, what's it going to cost for us to move up? What are you looking for at 23? What are you looking for at 26? He's also calling the teams behind him and saying, hey, if we stick at 31, hey, what would you give up to move to 31 from where you are now? Mm-hmm. He knows, and he will know that by the NFL draft, what each of those teams behind him wants. And he knows who to call if they're on the board at 31 and the player they want is not there.
Next week on Locked On Chiefs on Wednesday, folks, you're going to hear the tinfoil hat conspiracies, because I think the opposite's true as well. If Mike Barganzi told us the truth at the beginning of this offseason cycle, and he is going to take a generational talent, I think it's the corner/wide receiver, and maybe he wants to come back to 31 to get a quarterback. That's what I think. Matt will shoot that down, or at least chew on it for the next week. Matt, thanks for setting me straight, and I appreciate the legal arguments. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. We'll continue to talk about Josh Simmons all the way until the draft.
Yeah, I think we absolutely should, folks. Let us know what you think. What scenario do you like the best? Leave your comments on YouTube. Check us out over on social media and all the audio platforms, because we're always here and we're always available. Go to ChiefsDigest.com. Hit me at NFL 33 for my Aaron Rodgers rant right now. Then get over to RGR Football as we break down the film and show you a lot of things that you need to know. Thanks for being with us today. We'll be back with you tomorrow, and we'll talk to you then.